Hi everyone, I'm the plant propagator and welcome to my channel. Today it is a beautiful May afternoon here in Southwest Florida. It is 82 degrees. A cold front came through, so it's cooled down quite a bit. It's supposed to warm up a little bit later on this week. Anyway, what I wanted to do today is share with you a soon-to-be explosion of blooms that are coming on the orchid that you see all around me, which is Encyclia tampensis, the Florida butterfly orchid. This is a native orchid that grows in this area. There are native plants that are down the street that way, down the street that way. It really is, there are a lot of them around, and they're easy to grow in this area. You stick them there, they're on trees. They're epiphytic orchids that have, that grow on trees. It has become the most common orchid in my collection. If you know me, you know that I like the big floofy orchids. Encyclia tampensis is not that. It does have, they're very vigorous. They are fragrant, but the flowers are not very big. And on the plants that I have here that I want to share with you today, none of the flowers are open, but there are going to be a lot of flowers. So what I wanted to do is share some of my plants with you and tell you how I'm growing them and how they seem to be doing in the various conditions on the various media on which these orchids are growing. So I'm growing them again because they're easy to grow, because a lot of people like them because they are Florida natives, and again, they do so well here. So what I've been doing over the past few years is I take the seed from the native plants and I flask them. So I've generated thousands of plants, some of which have been placed outside here, most of which have ended up in various collections all over the place. They're very easy to grow from flask. The efficiency of germination is very high on some of the dishes that I've shared with you, some of the flasks that I've shared with you in the past. It's a lawn. There's a lot of the seeds have the embryos inside, and it creates what looks like a golf green filled with Encyclia tampensis seedlings. And then what I have to do is separate those and grow them out. And again, almost all of the plants, with the exception of just one that I have here that I want to share with you, I grew from seed in the laboratory. And some of these plants have gotten pretty big in a short amount of time. They do bloom quickly, and like I said, they're very vigorous. You can grow Encyclia tampensis. I have videos where I show you how to mount them, so you can mount them on trees, on boards, on plant parts, on really anything, and you put them under the right conditions and they will do in pots, and they'll do very, very well. So let me share some of the plants that I have with you today, and I can show you some of those that are in spike. My smallest one is right here, and this is on a little tiny board. This is on a piece of redwood that I think was bought as a, this is one of those things that they wire together and use them as landscaping edging. And so what I did is I took it apart and I put a very small seedling on here, put rubber bands, attached it, no sphagnum moss, no nothing, just the roots on the board. And what's going on is the roots are growing up on the board. The plant's tiny, it's doing well, but it is very small. Anyway, so just on a small cedar board here, it is the smallest plant that I have outside. I've got a lot more that are growing, in the laboratory that are little tiny seedlings that are, of course, smaller. Speaking of some of the other seedlings, these are some Encyclia tampensis seedlings that I brought home from the laboratory, I think probably about a month ago. And these are big. These were deflasked. I have to guess, I think these were deflasked probably around 4 months ago, maybe 5 months ago, and they're just, I deflasked them directly into Orchiata, and they're growing quickly. There's a lot of new pseudobulbs that are growing out of these. These, I should mention, the Encyclia tampensis, they're in the Cattleya alliance, so there are a lot of the similarities that you have with the Cattleyas, which is the main thing that I grow, and Encyclia tampensis. And I have made some crosses of tampensis with some of the other orchids in my collection, and I have some of those seedlings coming. So anyway, these are seedlings of Encyclia tampensis. They're doing really well. You can see how fast they have grown in just a short amount of time. And again, because they're native to the area, they do well. You know, you grow them in shade, like what I have here in this area. But you know, again, the roots are growing all over the place. The roots can grab onto things, or they can grow just fine in a pot. So these are some pretty small seedlings. Right here, and I've got these, and I've got, like I said, a bunch more in flasks, and I've got some other deflask seedlings that I'm going to be ready to bring home probably this week. All right, so another one that I have, so this is an Encyclia tampensis that I mounted directly on it's a petiole base of a date palm. I have a tampensis also growing in my date palm, and those are doing well. And this is one of those that I attached with rubber bands. It's just growing on this date palm base, and it's doing, you know, it's doing fine. It's not growing well. New pseudobulbs growing out of it. The roots are attaching to the, you know, to the base of this, and I wanted to try this because what happens is when I trim my date palm tree, I have a lot of these petiole bases left over, and I thought, well, okay, let me just see if I can mount one on there. And of course, they mount and they do well. They grow in the tree, so it's not surprising that they also do well on the base of the petiole. And this is, again, this is a hard, you know, it's a hard wood, and it seems to be doing pretty well. As far as other unusual type of mounts and boards that we have, so this is an Encyclia tampensis that is mounted on bamboo. And so this is a bamboo. I don't have any bamboo in my yard. They grow big here, and they're really hard to manage. But this is just a tampensis that I put on this piece of bamboo. And this is a long piece of bamboo. There was another one here and here, and the ones here, not all the plants survived. The two that I had here didn't survive, but the one that's up here survived, grabbed onto the board. And this, I should say, is not this is the outside of the bamboo, and this is the inside. This is a piece of split bamboo, and this is the inside. So it grabbed on, but also the roots, I drilled holes in the bamboo. The roots went through the holes and are also attached to the back of this board. So this is bamboo, and this one, if you can see, this one has a lot of bloom spikes on it. 1, 2, 3, 4, just 5 right now, but again, it's been growing really well while attached on the bamboo here. As far as other types of wood and pieces and media that I've mounted it to, here's one. Here's an Encyclia tampensis. Again, all of these I grew from seed. And here's one that's mounted on a piece of driftwood. The beach is about a mile that way, and this was a piece of driftwood that kind of washed up on shore. I let this sit outside for a long time. You know, what happens is you get the salt water impregnates the wood, and the orchids don't like living on wood that's been impregnated with salt water. And I should say that one of my first missions here was to mount Encyclia tampensis on some property that was beachfront, and that went well until the hurricanes that we've had a lot of came, and it didn't damage the orchids really that much, but The trees that the orchids were mounted in were apparently sufficiently damaged that they had to be cut down, and the orchids went with them. But this is a piece of driftwood that came out of the Gulf, and again, the roots are just growing like crazy. This is a small piece of wood, and you know, I'm not sure how much room is left. The requirements aren't that great for this orchid. It's not a huge plant, but you know, it's a nice sized plant. And again, this is going to be my first bloom. It looks like there's only going to be 2 or 3 flowers on it. And it's not, you know, it does better in other environments and other situations, but it'll grow here and it's blooming. It will be blooming in a few weeks. And I should also mention that when I will bring you the explosion of the blooms that we're going to see on tampensis, I'm probably about, like I said, about 2 or 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks away on some of these plants. Okay, so this is on, again, a piece of driftwood. As far as you know, the other wood, I do have a large piece. This plant is on a large piece of, and I think this is I'm not sure if this is, no, this isn't decking cedar. This is cedar that was actually on a wood post that was part of my house outside. And so this is an orchid that was mounted on this board a few years ago. And and then again, what happens when I mount on the boards, I attach with a rubber band that's here, and I just attach it on there. The roots grab onto it. I drill holes in the board before I attach the orchid, and then I have the roots from the orchid grow on the board, and they attach to it. They go through the board. And so this is actually a fairly large orchid that is on this cedar board. Okay, some of the other ways to mount, to grow these, as you might imagine, of course, are in pots. So this is one of my larger ones, one of my larger seedlings, and this is pretty substantial. I would guess there's probably about 15 bloom spikes coming out of this. It's a 4-inch square pot. The plant is growing over the edge of the pot. These are, I guess they're all over the place. This one is in my pergola. This is in my pergola. Again, they're spread out all over the place in the yard, and as long as there's shade, they do well. But the plants, the ones that I have in the pots, either in a bark mix or something like that, those are the ones that tend to do well, maybe because there's more moisture that collects inside the pots. But this is growing to the edge of the pot, the roots are growing over, but a pretty sizable plant, and I'm going to get a lot of blooms coming out on this. My largest seedling, Encyclia tampensis seedling, is right here. And last year, this thing put on a show, and it also had a ton of capsules, seed capsules, some of which were a result from me pollinating them, and some of which were from the insects that I watched for a few hours one day coming on this plant and pollinating. So this thing is loaded. This is a 4-inch round pot, and the pot is almost disappeared because of the root system that is from this plant that's grabbed onto it. I'm just going to guess there's probably around 30 or 40, maybe 50 bloom spikes that are coming out of this plant. I thought because of the capsules, the number of capsules that this plant generated last year, that it wouldn't be as productive this year, but look at it. This is doing really well. This Encyclia tampensis lives right here, and so this is where it lives. It's just on my trellis with supporting my alamanda, and this is where it does, and it does, as you can see, it does really well here. And again, this plant is just, this is my largest plant, and it's so loaded. Because this plant is vigorous, this is the plant that I use when I'm generating capsules and seeds, and when I'm crossing one Encyclia tampensis onto another one. I use this a lot because it makes so many flowers, number one, but also because the genetics of this plant is so good. because, you know, and so I'll cross onto it. It's so vigorous, the genetics are good, so I like to use this to make sure that I maintain this genetic vigor from this plant. This is not a native right here. This is a progeny plant from a native. So actually all of those that you've seen, I think to this point, this is a progeny plant from a native that was collected, but under the right conditions. And usually what happens is that the trees that these guys are mounted on, they either get cut down by developers or they fall down in the wind and the hurricanes, and then they get recovered. So again, this was a progeny from a native plant that was in somebody's collection. He has the information, he knows where it came from, and it was growing just a few miles from here. And then I got a spontaneous, probably a selfed capsule from that plant that I used to generate the majority of the plants here. The final plant that I want to share with you today is this one right here, and this is an actual native. So this is a Encyclia tampensis that was on a palm tree that was down the street from me, about half a mile from me. And what happened is this palm tree was right up against this house. It was a huge plant that was on this palm tree, and what happened is during the wind it kind of got bent over a little bit, and it was going to fall either on the house or it was going to fall to the point that it was going to damage the foundation of the house. So they really didn't have a choice, and they took the tree down. But the owner of that house knew me because I grow orchids, and she had my information, and she contacted me and she said, look, we need someone to take this plant. So I did get this native Encyclia tampensis plant. And I cut it up into multiple pieces, the majority of which I've given away, and I've still maintained a few pieces. The one piece that I had was in this pot. It was growing really well. It grew over the edge, and actually there's some pseudobulbs over here that grew over the edge that when I had to divide the plant that was in this pot. When I did that, these were stuck on the side of the pot, and I just left them. So the ones right here and the ones that are in this pot they're separated. But this thing is still growing well. This actually bloomed a little bit early a few weeks ago, and this is done, but now this plant is putting out new roots and pseudobulbs, which is what these guys do after they're done blooming. Now the thing that I did is I crossed this plant onto this plant. So I crossed this native plant that's a rescue, and I crossed it onto this plant, which is the progeny of a native plant, really high vigor. And what I got is a ton of seedlings coming in the laboratory. So my next batch or batches of seedlings, and also what I did, there was so many seed, I saved this. So I've got enough seed from this cross that it's going to last me for years. And I only probably flashed about maybe around a quarter of the seed, and I have so many seedlings coming. There's no way I'm going to be able to use them all, but I've transferred some of those onto the replate media, and some of those are now in the large flasks. So the progeny of these that were generated, about a year ago, are going to be ready to come out of the flask probably in a few months. So they're still small, but they're getting bigger. Anyway, there's an explosion of Encyclia tampensis flowers and plants and everything coming, and I just wanted to share all of that with you today. I hope you enjoyed my video. If you have any questions or comments, please put them in the comments. I'd be happy to answer them. If you like the video and you want to keep on seeing them, it would help me out if you can click on like, share, and subscribe to my channel if you're not already a subscriber. All right, a lot of stuff going on. I've got new blooms over there. The orchids are just looking great. The deflasked orchids are just looking amazing. And again, I'm happy to share all that with you. All right, that's all I have for you today. Again, I hope you enjoyed it, and happy propagating.